especially if you're a squad that lands over by Lightning Rod or Thunderwatch. You've got easier access to your POI than most other times, and as it turns out, you won't have to move too far, because the ring is actually pulling us up pretty far to the north as well. Teams that land over by fish farms, for example, might have a little bit more difficult time. I'm looking at you, Luminosity, but by rotating up through the eastern side of the map, they should be able to make it uphill, but in relatively short amounts of time.
Yeah, obviously we look towards things like Cascade Falls and some of these southern chokes to be at least position a potential contest here, especially given the fact that, yes, this zone will be making its way even deeper towards that northeastern side of Thunderwatch and Stormcatcher. We get a bit of split, but meanwhile, fighting to already take place here in the deep.
Bots seem to be coming out on top of it as HCE struggling with the 99. Have to hit the reload on the low ground. Crook is low, but gets a nice bit of damage down. Takes out a HCE finally. Bots getting these last bits of damage in to claim their POI. We knew this was one of the contests that could go down once we hit Storm Point, and things have gone pretty well for bots so far, as they did in qualifiers, Zephyr.
All right. Already a little bit of the similar success we've seen from this roster in quals, and now carrying it forward. Obviously, here we tune in towards Tripods, a team that you were discussing before we got into the match, and they're looting up, hopefully quickly here from Command Center. They're one of those teams that they're going to have first dibs on where they might want to start playing out this zone here.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by what we'll see out of Tripods, mainly because they've switched up their landing spots in between now and qualifiers. Previously, they were over at Launchpad, which is not going to be something they can do anymore since we've got SSG over there. And with this adaptation, I mean, it opens up a totally different way of rotating into zone for you, perhaps out of zone in the case that they seem to be going for right now, heading over towards wall. They're not the only ones on the move. Very soon, we'll be getting a lot of our squads setting themselves up for where they want to play the end game, especially those that are more comfortable in zone. I would not include Slept On in that. Do you want to talk about their legends?
I was about to say, already right off the bat, we see a little bit of the oddities there with Octane and the combination of Bangalore. A pick that did find a lot of play, especially in the earlier splits of Storm Point, but has since been replaced, obviously, for Slept On, something that might give them their mobility within the chaos of these smokes. But first up, they might have to match against Complexity here as they have arrived.
Now, fortunately for Slept On, Complexity are on all whites right now, and on the low ground. A Valcolt from here actually instantly channeled, and I don't mind it, since Valcolting from the high ground does get you a really nice bit of movement. As TSM try and make their way up vertically, they wish they had a little bit more of that extra height to be able to pass this team in its entirety, instead having to opt through the caves right now, and still put themselves in, I would say, a difficult position where when you consider actually fighting up to the high ground, it doesn't get any easier when you're inside the caves versus out.
I am curious to see what is available over here towards Thunderwatch for TSM. This is obviously a power position for the squad to set up in, and it clearly could be very empty. We know many teams can share that. Meanwhile, for ESA, clearing out that IMC armory, none other than NRG has heard the shots and now arrives. Seems like they may not actually be looking to take any advantage here.
I'm wondering what's going on, because, like you say, I'm sure that they know exactly who is in that IMC armor, at least have the best guess. It is something that NRG likes to track in terms of who's landing over at North Pad, but their rotation is going to bypass it entirely, making use of the fact that this team is literally locked in a room and shadowing TSM on the way up. It is very delayed, and NRG are going to have a lot of time to make up this vertical distance, but nonetheless, the fact that they give up a fight and instead are going to play for zone might speak to a little bit of a shift in play style.
Well, we'll see. For now, obviously, ESA might rotate a very similar way behind them, and they might not have any choice but to fight here. But obviously, a lot of spacing still well and available for the first close. For TSM, they did make their way, of course, towards the Thunderwatch area, and yes, are contesting across here. Now, obviously, a bit of a gentleman's agreement. No way in hell that they'll be sending themselves out anytime soon here.
The fact that TSM have set themselves up all the way here in zone, though, is of curiosity to me. And with Optic arriving on the scene as well, things are about to get not just more crowded, but a lot more dangerous up here in Thunder Watch. As this isn't a building that I would say a whole lot of squads can coexist in, at least not for very long. With Optic on top, they've got the best shot at being able to third-party any engagement that happens down there, which should keep these two teams below them relatively chilled out for right now, neither wanting to take the risk of that third party, but it is only a matter of time before a fourth and even fifth team piles in here. And while we've been talking about who's playing zone, we haven't even gotten the chance to see how Guard is rotating in here yet.
I am curious to see, obviously, teams we saw a little bit later on the rotation, like NRG, will likely maybe come through the cave system or try to play out from the northern side. And there isn't a lot of space to work with in that position, but it is definitely something that could potentially take advantage of some of those angles that we might see over towards Optic. So while they may not be pulling the trigger and we may see a lull in the action of Thunderwatch, it isn't something that may garner success in the future as things tighten up.
Now, BR Demons taking height all the way out here around Launchpad. Do end up finding a quick shield break, but no more, as BR Demons are unlikely to give up their high ground, instead gatekeeping this squad on the low. For the moment, it'll be relatively safe for them, and their backs also shouldn't have a whole lot of attention since most teams have prioritized that zone too, but I like that they're playing a little bit further back. Aiden actually taking a big chunk on the way that pulls Reeds all the way over to cover. And fortunately enough for them, they have height, because if not, BR Demons probably wouldn't have much else.
It's tough to say what occurs now here. Obviously, they extend Reeds back there to maybe get a little bit of the lay of the land, but obviously, looks like this squad may not be coming through this choke for now for BR Demons. They know for a fact, especially with the information that lays ahead of this zone, that they've got to make moves for Impulse, Stompus, and Jalo, and they've got some problems from behind.
They're managing to make their way up through the Luminosity gaming path that we talked about earlier. If you take a look at your map, up in this eastern side, you do have Luminosity actually about 500, 600 meters ahead of them on this very same rotation. Both of these squads will be encountering the choke point with MPS right next to them, and Complexity, that team that you highlighted at the start of the day, sitting above. This could be a really good time for this very same team to hold out 3 other squads and already put themselves in contention for a top spot. With Guard sitting up here, we finally got our question answered as well as to how they were rotating into the zone. And while they're not sitting in Thunderwatch proper, their position is actually pretty easy to hold down, especially considering the fact they've got Watson Crypto for those beacon scans.
Now, something that I do want to bring up is the fact that, yes, this zone sometimes can cater a little bit further out towards the eastern end and maybe not directly outside of Thunderwatch. And in those particular scenarios, it can be incredibly dangerous, especially for so many of those teams who have set themselves up directly in that POI. And so you see early rotations like Complexity in particularly a better spot potentially for those end games. Obviously, we have to wait to see how those particular pulls work out. But at the end, for the rest of these players here, it seems like for now, just kind of holding through. Doesn't seem like even for a team like TL, it's going to be that much of a problem.
SSG making their own rotation now. Do have quite a bit of ground to cover up towards this northern side, but running the Bangalore, they've got a pretty offensive composition with which to do so as well. We know, given our preview of the map earlier, that the choke points that they're running up against will be really difficult to fight through, and they've still got plenty of time and plenty of space even on this next zone close to be able to work with that. The Bangalore, again, providing that defensive reset from a very long way away. But my curiosity is to how they'll adapt as this zone pinches them further in, because if SSG are trying to bunker down and trying to play little bits of rock right next door to other teams, they simply don't have the comp to do it. This is a team that has to be finding squad wipes, and given the fact that we've still got 19 teams remaining in an even closer spot than they would normally be, you really do need SSG to take these kills now. Otherwise, it's going to be third-party central for them.
It looks like they are beginning to find them here. An initial drop down on Gambit to follow through with the entire thirst for Blakeu and what looks to be Kuzme joining this roster here today. They've led themselves down towards the low ground of this hill from now, giving away this position. SSG now in a prime spot of real estate. We do look, though, up there towards the POI direct of Stormcatcher. There are teams who are watching from above, and we both know that obviously this zone continues to pull even further north. So while SSG may have found some initial success here, I still worry for their further rotation.
It is a really valid concern, especially since they don't have that height that we saw Complexity take earlier for their Valgult, something that's actually just a few meters, but makes such a big difference. ESA taking an interesting route in here through Command Center, come up against NRG and have sent Luda out on the flank. This is the fragging potential that you get with a pickup like Luda, but it's going to come with a little bit of risk. Let's watch how things pan out for Luda, as he does have a good off angle, joined actually by what I believe is Phony right next door. Capra taking that quick bat to come around the side and sort of shepherd NRG further away from them. No deadly damage just yet, but it's been a game of inches that ESA are winning, and how now that they've found their first knock, ESA can take control of this, even in the 2v3. They do have to be careful, though. Phony does get taken a little bit lower than is comfortable, and that bat is going to come in clutch to let ESA continue pushing forward, keep that res from going off. Nice CRQ to make sure that that happens, and the finish off from Capra now gives them unending height as well. Still a bit of a risky situation, but NRG should be on the retreat. Capra getting caught outside this zone a little bit, manages to get right back to safety using the mobility of this Valkyrie.
A little bit too far forward there, and that forces the rotation of energy right into the clutches here of ESA. Singularity thrown out to try to pressure them back, but Phony slips in to find the initial knock on Guild. The zone is ticking, though, and he will go down as a result. Officially, only Sweet now left up alive. Capra looking to eclipse this door once again to potentially finish the job.
That was a really good finish from Capra. The shot calling from ESA perfectly coordinating in that moment. As soon as Capra was in trouble, you saw Luda and Phony come over, make the cover, and put NRG down yet another member. It is only Sweet out here, and while I had raised questions at the start of the day about replicating their success from previous seasons, it ain't gonna happen in Game 1. Not like this. Sweetie doesn't even have the banners at this point, and still has a long way to go till that next ring. For while we've been focused on the fight, the zone pulls even further out of Command Center.
We'll see how they fare. We tune back in towards SSG. Now, obviously, when we tuned in with them, they were in a completely different location towards the south, so somehow, some way, they were allowed to make major free rotations all the way up here towards the east. DSM and many of these other squads still hand-holding. It does look like Stormtroopers, our squad from the Challenger circuit, is eliminated. Meanwhile, SSG on their way in.
This was the squad that we said had to be taking 3v3s. They've got the composition to do it, to apply a lot of pressure, and with Drop sliding on the way in. Yes, they've got a good decent bit of damage down on the shields, but they lose Zenile for it. Drop going down as well, and it's up to Frex in a 1v1. Played around these knockdown shields to make it happen. Zone's going to start coming in. Arcstar falls out, and Frex, pushed out the door, is taken down as Luminosity come in for the third party.
And we already knew here Luminosity had played out here towards the northeastern side and had come through to start off that and now make their way back to finish the job. It obviously looks like, as we take a look at the kill feed, Tripods picked up as well here. A bit of a split in terms of damage, but mostly from what looks to be phase.
It's a lot of just flying too close to the sun, I think, for Tripods. They've rotated in late, and with the team already sitting underneath Thunderwatch, they might have made the same mistake that ESA did, currently taking a fight up against CLG, who have walled off with this Catalyst ESA from everyone else in the lobby. They pick up almost all those kills, and ESA are evaporated before our eyes. CLG now receiving that third party is... Rez is going to go out from Mamba, but in are coming those Valk missiles. Not going to get the relock onto Nano, but Mamba, sitting on just a little corner of this rock, is going to have to hold it down for the entire squad right now, with only 2 members standing. How much of a fight can CLG realistically put up towards this endgame?
Ooh. It's tough, too, because we talk about some of those angles on top of Thundercatch there that might be pressuring CLG. They've obviously managed to survive for the time. They've got a little bit of cover to work with off some of those exposures. Meanwhile, the other side, edge of zone, the guard looking to finish off the remnants here. Eon trying to take an opposite angle, try to shift all the way around the bend here. We'll stick bats for now. Pylon down from Rambo. Arc stars are being thrown out, but they're still finding good breaks.
To make sure that Keon gets zoned off. He's wide swung on this, no cover available. Dips into the zone for just a second to take down Vayne. And Guard, though they lose RKN, still have themselves a 2 versus 1 with Flesh found on BR Demons. It is a quick clean up for the Guard, who find themselves 3 KP and still one of the best spots in this upcoming zone. For Complexity, whittled down to just Luxford up here. They've got shots with those G7 that simply aren't going to be enough. Luminosity Gaming coming in for yet another third party up in the north.
Breaking down the fence line here, making their way in, slowly clearing out the space to lay claim over a dominant spot. Now, we talk about Thunderwatch. I explained here at the very beginning that we may see this zone continue to drift away from this POI, and it has come to claim here. Now starting to move in. You see Team Optic on the tippity top with the redeploy. Where they land, nobody knows.
Now, FaZe still sitting underneath, have been hemorrhaging meds, but cleaning up a lot of those from the bodies that dropped on them earlier. FaZe is in a good spot to be able to clean up other teams that drop down onto them, but not make offensive moves themselves. Instead, it's TSM that have made those pushes, cleaning up yet another squad, and with Hal popping a medi real quick, they haven't got a whole lot of time to push out of this building. FaZe still underneath them, and Guard trying to rotate around the side are actually doing so without attracting too much attention. Rambo's got angles on everyone,
wow.
And we're seeing squads drop. Hal is going to start tanking the zone now, and a combination of Guard and CLG knock them out. It's time for Guard to find a little bit more cover, as they don't have too much of it against CLG. Keon actually getting knocked down, even behind that care package, and as TSM are gone, a Kraber in the hands of RKN could solve all of Guard's problems. That crack not quite going to come through, as Sykes finally finds that thirst onto Keon, knocking RKN as well. It's up to Rambo now with the RE45 sitting behind a white knockdown shield to somehow survive the onslaught of Team Liquid on this high ground.
I was about to say TL here. They're the ones in the position to pay over across from them. You see how they lay down control over the Guard. They set up here incredibly early on and have been using this cover. And of course, the way it positions out from Thunderwatch to find their advantage. You can see there, finally, CLG finished the job to wipe out the Guard. But this doesn't change the fact that we saw a God spot claimed quite a while ago into the hands of none other than Luminosity. For both CLG and TL, they've got a rotation ahead.
28 seconds left means that Catalyst ult not going to be up. Team Liquid looking down on this are going to have pretty free shots on a relatively immobile squad in the form of CLG, who have done quite well so far. Top 3 is good for them, especially as a duo, but right now they are pinned down with absolutely nowhere to go. Luminosity know it, and Team Liquid know it. It should be a matter of just cleaning up these pieces before our final 3v3. Surely CLG can't do anything about that.
TL making their way across here, starting to set up these angles. Missiles down. Unable to stun. They had to be paying their respects, though. Luminosity still has quite the good spot upon them. And Sykes with the charge rifle. Nano, the first to fall here. Ordnance is raining down from above. It's likely that we see the end of CLG as the wall comes up.
Luminosity should have angles on this as well. Nice bit of rock cover by Yanya. It's just that last member, Mamba, that stands in their way, and good cracks as Mamba tries to dance through this wall. Does end up giving the kill over to TL. An interesting split, as now we approach our final fight, and TL simply don't have that much cover either. They've got the Loba for sustain, but even that's not going to help them that much in the face of Luminosity, who own this high ground, who have that, as you illustrated even earlier, God spot for themselves. Blood ult popped. Niesel still up, is going to provide provide a lot of utility for the next couple seconds as scans will continually be coming out. Yanya takes an angle themselves, reloads, and comes around the corner again to find Flesh, backing off just in time to let Jaguares take the lead, knocking Sykes. It's the first one down on Team Liquid, but not the last, as Luminosity Gaming swarm this rock, swarm Team Liquid, find another knock, and make it a third to find their first win of the day.
Luminosity, your winners of Game 1 here in the inaugural match of Split 2 here in Season 1 of Oversight. The bat being that of a very similar zone.
I'd be worried about it for sure. I'm keeping my eyes specifically on Slepton because I know they've got that beacon at Stormcatcher, so they'll give us a little bit of insight very soon. SSG, similarly over by Launchpad, will have that data, and in terms of teams that are going to be able to adapt, it's them and Team Liquid that actually have some of the best paces of being able to move themselves into zone should they need to. Tuning back over here, though, it's round 2 of Bots versus HCE. Zephyr, it's time to fight, and we've already got a purple shield picked up for HCE. What a disaster!
Stompez here, right into the meat grinder, nowhere close to getting themselves set up, and I'll tell you what, Bots just did not time that drop effectively there. HCE were the first to the punch by miles.
Not even close, honestly. I leave this POI wondering, was there even a second squad here? Because that cleanup was so fast. They've also, of course, got that beacon to be able to scan themselves, but we finally have that information revealed for us as we are again, as you said, Zephyr, going up to the north. It wasn't just initially similar. We're all doing essentially round 2 of the exact same thing. I guess only this time HCE get to play.
Well, I will say there is a slight difference regarding that zone. It does not carry itself as far over towards the east this side, so don't expect that situation where we saw teams like TSM, who currently position in 3rd, being forced to make their way out from that building in such a dangerous maneuver. That POI can actually garner a little bit more success for the late game this time around.
Certainly can, and I'm hoping that a lot of other teams have recognized that as well, because trying to adapt into what was last game, while it may be tempting based on what the zone looks like right now, it is still going to be a better move to work with your gut and work with what you've seen already happen in zones like this previous. DSM even taking a little bit more time up here over in the wall to make sure that they've got all the loot that they need before moving on. That 301 getting kitted up, and evidently us trading a bunch of places over here as Optic start their own fight over in, I was going to call this zone Millage.
Millage, it does have an official name, and usually, you know I know him, but not this time around. Either way, for Optic, they've got, of course, Smiley on their tails. They found an initial knock onto Gambit to start this one off. Uzme, of course, and Blakeu heading for the hills. A bit of a split, noticeably, but obviously will be likely to regroup here in a moment. But, you know, decimated for the time being. Going to be very difficult as a duo, even maybe to wrap back around.
You don't like Millage, Zephyr?
All right.
Well, I try and peer pressure Zephyr into taking a few of my made-up names for different places around Storm Point. There is a spot that has been taken that ain't made up, that actually means quite a bit. With Slepton sitting in TSM's former spot, we talked about how this ring may be played a little bit similarly, right? Where this spot may be a little bit better. And Slepton have actually made a nice adjustment considering what they faced up against last game. They're applying pressure on Roof really early, and especially with these shields, while it's a little bit risky, investing this time earlier rather than later is going to be really good for them. HCE taken out in the meantime by SSG, though. We said they were going to get to play. They didn't get to play as much as we would have liked, and we're down to 18 earlier than I would have thought.
I'll be honest, blink and you would have missed it there. For SSG, though, it's a very similar spot that we saw them coming out of in our first game this time around. Obviously, a hyper rotation from HCE, something that they actually didn't get the practice to see last time around. Meanwhile, it looks like none other than Tripods have found an initial drop here on the TSM. Exhibit down to defend for now, but they still can't compete with just 2.
The missile swarm re-knocking Reps is deadly. Hal is down as well, and as good as Verhulst is, the 1v3 is not going to be going his way. TSM are out, and they're out in 18th, Zephyr.
That's rough here for TSM. They led the pack last time around, 3rd overall, and now we'll only have one last opportunity here on Storm Point to put up some points. Meanwhile, we're starting to see some of those rotations, something that is completely unique of that Catalyst pick. They are utilizing that wall to garner some coverage as BR Demons don't get to take any free shots on their movements out towards the north here of Jurassic Park.
Team Smiley have gotten their 3rd back into the game. Such was the catalyst, if you'll excuse the pun, for the Catalyst ult, as FaZe start pushing up on their next engagement. It's going to be their first of the game up against NRG, sitting in wall right now. This could attract a lot of attention, and NRG have had to back off all the way into the southern end of this POI, as FaZe take even more space away from them. Now, however, playing from the low ground, Aberlately takes a big chunk to the base, and NRG are still playing back, still playing scared up against a squad that has taken a lot of room away from them, and now it's taken Nathan away from them. Out comes that black hole, and Sweet's got to make a difference here. The Arc Stars aren't going to connect just yet. Instead, FaZe rounds the corner and takes out Guild for the 2nd drop onto NRG, and what is sure to be yet another early shutdown onto this squad.
NRG just cannot get their foot in the mud here, continuing to slip and slide. Meanwhile, FaZe, we hope they've found the time to regroup here as ESA arrive. Luda into the sky, seconds away from drop down. Aberlately with the 30-30, Phony running for the hills back into the open ends of the wall. It's a massive punishment here from the high ground that FaZe put themselves on.
I feel bad for Luda because you saw the dream in his eyes. He just wanted that little bit of extra damage that could have been a knock for ESA, that could have changed the game for them. But now it means that they have to play things out as a 2-man, and that little bit of overzealousness has cost ESA the ability to really make an impact, to hold down a position convincingly in the late game, especially when they're already a squad that is going to need to be working their way into zone and isn't already there. As BR Demons will have to do much the same. They look towards their next rotation that'll continue pulling them up further into the north, and they're not going to be the only ones who are occupying big spots. SSG, taking away Luminosity's place from just last game, have got a gatekeeping position this time around and plenty of space to use that Bangalore to the fullest.
My apologies, Complexity making their way over to a similar spot that we saw from TL last time around. TL, though, making bets obviously further north, opposite side here in a bit of that Pineapple Dome for themselves. Obviously, the only team right above them being that of Furia. We do see Gent over here towards the west with a little bit of a large rotation, but obviously likely not to carry themselves any further away from the rest of the tripods. Teams like ESA, FaZe, CLG, of course, BR and Optic still on the outskirts of zones ahead.
Guard poking their heads out at tripods is going to be an engagement that we have to watch. There's the opportunity for them to rotate out to the south, or rather through it, but it's going to be perhaps a less attractive option than just being able to take away that high ground in a 3v3. And having spoken to RKN previously about this, sometimes you got to risk the game to win the game, and that may be what Guard's doing right now. Is even through this far away cam, we can see their health bars dropping a little bit. Rambo taking some poke.
Calm down. Careful, bud. Careful. Meanwhile, back towards over here on Thunder Watch, dressings upon this roof, a nice Watson fence line to put some into safety. You've got MPS on the opposite side with some angles, and the lovely artwork ripped to shreds here by Shooby Tooby.
This trademark Stormtroopers play on the other side of this as well. MPS, they are not going to be able to unseat the Newcastle Watson that has sat up on top of the building. It's the whole point of how Stormtroopers have really been playing, even throughout Challenger Circuit. They'll sit here, put down a wall, put down the pylon, and wait. It's what got them so many placement points. It's what did the exact same thing for them in the qualifiers to today's games, and it's bamboozled a lot of squads. If the zone actually keeps pulling to Stormtroopers, I don't see a world where they're unseated very easily.
Meanwhile, for Optic here, we talk about unseated out of the command center. BR not far behind. Now, obviously, no real damage to knock Optic anyways out of it here, but obviously trying to set themselves up to potentially either make their next rotation forward or find a resurgent back. Looks like for BR, they've actually made their way to pulling in own direction. Not interested in following up whatsoever. These teams, kind of like what you were saying at the very beginning today, playing this one maybe a little bit more defensive, making more choice decisions.
I mean, if BR Demons are going up, they're going to find themselves right into the arms of our guard squad. Vayne jumps up here, and, well, they do eliminate the fences. Guard know exactly what's going on right now. I'm surprised that BR Demons even got the opportunity to jump up without taking damage from the fences, but either way, Guard now on full alert. Have themselves in a defensive position and with a nice bit of damage as well. They're close to the next shield level ups as Keon does have to take a little bit of a chill pill, but out goes that EMP, sending everyone right back down the rabbit hole and giving Rambo the chance to put up these fences again.
Now, what I worry here is obviously we may not see BR address that in a similar fashion, but for the Guard, we talk about their resource management. Look at the shielding that they have available. Double blue on the white. That's something that can be ego challenged at any given point here. Now, Rambo obviously likely to set these fences up maybe a little bit more dangerously this time around, but still, potential impacts.
Yeah, it is risky, and it's one of the reasons that I like that they're playing inside for now, but also that I would really prefer that they're able to focus their efforts on tripods in front of them, because they've got, in the case of Guard, more sustain with that Watson, nice long range to be able to take some poke. I know Nick Merckx is a beast with the 30-30, something that he's likely running this game, but it is still, I think, the better option to be able to, with safety of buildings, shield, heal up. CLG not going to have that luxury as they make their rotation in onto FaZe. I believe this is spotted as Snipedown's already thrown some shots out, but gets almost taken down from just off to the north. And it's a quick shield bat, a quick reset for FaZe as they've now all got to group up on top of this building, already smoked out as well. And with the Digi, that'll only do so much. FaZe don't have a lot of room to maneuver with.
I was about to say, though, for CLG, though, it is still an issue ahead. Obviously, Storm continuing to tick, and they didn't take advantage of the damage that they found and pull back towards their original position. Now, obviously, with FaZe on high alert. Meanwhile, for Optic, back towards the Stormcatcher. Direct pressured out for now. Duplex back with his own coverage. Vayne, the first to fall.
BR Demons in big trouble as Skittlecakes gets the chance to wrap around the corner as well, and the BR Demons are taken out entirely. It's going to be a quick shield swap for Skittlecakes, making sure that Dupe will have full HP in the shield department when he gets rezzed. As Luminosity have pushed up onto SSG from the low ground, they actually find themselves right next door to Complexity, holding down the Team Liquid spot from earlier. And speaking of Team Liquid, they're in God's spot this time around. How do you like them apples?
It's a better pull there for them, obviously, but they've got coverage that they'll need to perform, especially with both FaZe and Furia, and what looks to be CLG landing right on top of Abralele. But Mamba takes huge damage that prevents him from getting the job done where it counts.
Down as well, Demi to follow, and CLG with just one member left really don't command that much respect from FaZe, it seems, who get to slip and slide right through this wall as Mamba gets full thirsted. A little bit of cover from the smoke, doing essentially the same job as the ult moments ago. FaZe get the chance to play from this low ground, and while it may not be luxurious, the loot down here is certainly going to make them feel a lot better about this position that they've got to play from.
And obviously in that moment there, we see the issue of playing out an edge like that with a rotation as slow as what we saw from CLG. You see how you become so weak in moments like that, forced to make decisions that pressure you there. For Nano, now the last remaining member, going to be ratting this one out. But we know with games, with Seer, with the dominance of this meta, there's no such thing as a rat anymore.
Oh no, there is not. Nick Merck springs that trap, takes down the last member of CLG in combination with Deeds and the rest of the tripods. And with the Seer ult out now, they at least get a little bit of warning on the fact that FaZe was running up on them. But the question is, was it enough? For Gent, it has not been. Nick playing like a monster behind that knockdown shield, finally gets taken down, and you push out just that little bit too far and get taken out by Furia. FaZe going to be able to reset just behind this Prowler den. Well, everybody around them falls left and right. The chaos just a little too much.
I have to say, though, from tripods there, it was as close as it got. You thought the job was done. 2v2 in the end, but managing to pick up major damage to potentially turn that fight around. Sadly, in the end, they couldn't quite fester the last little bit that would have carried them forward. And now, of course, FaZe with the resets, the gold knockdown. Meanwhile, back here, I tell you once again, it seems like deja vu here in Thunderwatch. All these teams that have set up a squad like Stormtroopers, who you had high praise for their defensive positions, now forced to make dire rotations ahead. I would say they have maybe some better legs ahead here, obviously, given the fact that I do see that castle wall available and likely the pylon as well. A good redeploy into a perfect position could be set up.
From a playstyle perspective, though, this is where we would expect Stormtroopers to be the weakest. They've got to rotate out of the defensive position. That's not historically been where they thrive, especially with so many other experienced teams trying to do the same thing. We got to worry, is Prophet going to be picked up, but they lose yet another, and it's to a two-man of ESA who wrap around this corner, finding that second knock again. Stormtroopers haven't even moved yet, and they've already lost control.
A quick fence tap there from Phony, but you make short work of that one. Stormtroopers likely said and done there. We saw them too aggressive on the Crafter before we headed towards the free camp, taken out by the missiles ahead, and now Sosei also picked off Pow Pow, making good on the name. For MPS, though, they've got a movement ahead to find them some space to work with. Ordnance double down. Shuby looking for angles.
Bring it, Shuby, right around that corner. In comes the Newcastle wall, giving them a chance to hide just in time, as well as the Arc Star is going to be causing some big problems. Optic Gaming end up finding a wipe onto ESA, turning around. The guard are also gone, but Optic continue to fight out here with Bangs running in around them. We have got the Rolling Thunder coming down for a little bit of extra damage. Skittlecakes is going to be able to play this one relatively passively, and through the smoke does have to start thinking about the future, with Dupe down on this low ground with him, and a little bit of the Newcastle wall still in play. Optic Gaming have only lost one so far, can still fight this out. Complexity are shooting down at them, and Skittlecakes has gone. FaZe have picked up those kills. Madness right on the other side. It is chaos in the southern end of this ring, as Team Liquid even and Godspot are taken out.
Furia, they make their moves on the opposite side of the clip to take away a position that could highlight endgame victories. Still, though, we talk about squads like FaZe, Complexity ahead, what looks to be Madness as, yes, the final rat taken out by Snipe Down. Our final three here as FaZe push upon Complexity, but I'll tell you what, neither of them are in zone.
Can play a little bit more confidently right here already. Not a whole lot of cooldowns for Complexity. They do have team shots, though, and Lux goes low. Swapping behind that Newcastle shield. He doesn't get the time. The shield is chewed through, and though FaZe end up in a 2v1, it's Furia who are coming in to third party it. It's the last two squads already, and Furia from the high ground, from the unquestionable Godspot, have already taken down Snipe Down, have already set themselves to a victory this game. This is their victory lap as the 301 shoos through that smoke and sends Furia to a Game 2 win.
Furia, your second winners here of the Oversight Week 1 finale for the, my apologies, game.
Attempted it, though got shut down a little bit early by tripods, will now get the opportunity to hunker down a little bit more. Specifically TSM, who landing over by a wall, have a very short walk into this ring.
You know, TSM is definitely a team that I'll be watching like a hawk into this game in particular, because it was just last, at least out of game one, that they sat there right on the cusp, that top 4 kind of position for themselves, and now are on the bottom half of the leaderboard. And obviously, I mean, we can all do math here at home. It's very early on in our series, but similar performances to that as other teams raise the bar are never anything good. Either way, we'll tune right back into your regularly scheduled programming here in Shipfall.
Round 3, fight. The bots already, Mastiff 30-30, pretty big burst, at least out of Jalone. But what I'm noticing when I look around them is that HCE aren't firing their guns. They're not dying. They've landed on the outside and have given us a different look in this third game. Both teams wanting to avoid the mutually assured destruction, or at least the 50-50 that came with how they were fighting previously, and now taking a bit of a different approach. The thing is, HCE, they haven't got the most incredible loot just yet, and that is what you want when you drop separately, is being able to get a massive difference between you and the enemy squad. That hasn't happened here, and I do wonder whether bots rotate out to the south to avoid the fight, or whether they gamble on the fact that HCE may have worse loot.
I mean, at the end of the day, obviously this kind of time that allows HCE to get themselves in a better position could also lead to them maybe garnering a rotation. Now, obviously, bots have already begun to move up. You can see Jalone, Impulse starting to set themselves on this high ground here of the Shipfall Direct. Crafting is spotted out here from HCE, and this actually might waver them, especially with damage like that. The bots may now maybe not have the best rotation for to take a straight 3v3. It is very open trying to close a gap like this. So who knows? Maybe neither of our first 2 teams out will be between these 2.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to see them disengage. I mean, I know that bots wants this crafter. The replicator, however, is really the only thing they're fighting over at this point. Maybe that and a little bit of bragging rights, but even without the 2x, now that we finally get to take a look at it, HCE have been putting out some serious damage, and like you talked about, have the easier rotation. The problem for me comes in with the fact that despite the fact that HCE have this advantage, they can lose it if they continue in this fight, because if bots had continued to pressure, there's always the chance that a sandwich comes in, that somebody takes out HCE for the bots.
At the end of the day, that's nowhere close to our zone, though, right? And for most of those teams, the rotation ahead is definitely something that seems more favorable, and that's why you see bots begin to pull away. For a squad like FaZe, though, they've got themselves some nice high ground. Obviously, what looks to be the scan as well, showing us they're directly on top of where they need to be. Now, expending themselves a little bit further forward here may be a bit rough, but for TL, they're paying the price from behind. It doesn't even matter where FaZe is.
Untaken out, full thirsted by Sweet now, as FaZe do continue to hold this high ground. No reason not to, as they can instead capitalize on that jump pad. Down, Sykes is almost able to find a knock, but not quite able to, as Optic instead are able to take out the last remaining members of that squad. With FaZe in down beast and Optic with an early prioritization of the outside of this zone, we could actually see Optic in a really good spot later on in the game, but it is a little bit of a gamble, where FaZe, their only gamble is actually being able to outlast and outfight anybody who takes shots at them.
It is difficult, right? We talk about Down Beast, one of the largest POIs here on Stormpoint. Being on the high ground, especially for those late game pulls, is incredibly dominant. It is so good, but defending it, especially as many teams try to pepper and make their rotations in, can be as difficult as it gets. So we'll truly see FaZe currently in the lead at their wits and their true test here in their final moments of Stormpoint. We take a look back towards the map. Most teams have already made their way in deep.
Oh, but the guard, they've made it in here without the shields to back it up. The EMP almost saves Keon, but does not quite, as instead it's a full thirst before he even hits the building. I will say, in this particular case, it's nice to have a Crypto, but that's if Crypto survives, and Smile are trying their best to make sure that that is not what occurs. Fully sending it inside this building with the catalyst to back him up. They're looking for even more knocks in the fight that's happening just to the south of Down Beast. Stormtroopers have been taken down as well, as it was TSM that dealt the final deadly blow, and oh my god. It's one of the only times that we've been able to see that interaction in pro play. But yeah, Crypto Drone does open those doors.
Either way, look at that kill feed there. We might have missed it, but NRG finding even more success now. One might punish this out here. They take their first fight off against Complexity, and immediately TSM wrap their way around after their fight against Stormtroopers, potentially to clean this one up. Now they pull quite heavily away from what could have been early access towards NRG as a whole.
Bit of a zero to hero moment for TSM, especially considering last game. It's not zero, because that would be a little unfair to the legacy of TSM, but since they've got the cover of this bridge and they've got plenty of kills to back them up, it is certainly going to be an entirely different performance from what we saw 20 minutes ago. It seems like the same thing's happening to Tripods as well, since they've had to move a whole lot further than they have in previous zones, and unfortunately, Guard may stop moving pretty soon. Rambo's able to get one kill back, but I'm watching that kill feed as Keon is taken down for the second time in this game just before the Guard meet their untimely end in 17th place.
That's a bit of a mix there. You got FaZe coming in as well, Smiley, everyone picking up the kills where they count here against the Guard. Now CLG has heard the shots, have started to potentially pressure this one down. They've got some of those, a little bit of the sub-ordinances in there from Catalyst, but obviously there's so many buildings allowed and available in play. There's no real reason for CLG to potentially push this unless they're absolutely confident in their step forward. That's a full 3-man.
It is interesting that both of our Catalyst teams have come up against each other. CLG looking down at the only other Catalyst in the lobby. We'll just trade damage and play nice for the moment, since they have the opportunity to sit back and reset for a little while, not being forced to take the engagement, where Tripods may not have that same luxury. We talked about Nick Merckx and his 30-30 earlier. He's already laying out some damage. The rest of Tripods rotating over, and Deeds with a bit of a wide swing does deal some crucial damage to push this squad back, even taking out the shields. We'll see if that knock comes through. Gent trying to lay out that extra knock, doesn't quite get it this time, and it's going to allow Slepton to just barely escape back through this choke.
And the funniest thing here is Slepton was the team really pushing pedal to the metal here against Tripods for so many moments. They had the position in Cascade Falls, chased after them, and couldn't come up in the end. And now making their way back, might be running up against teams like Furia, HCE, SSG, and the rest.
This is a crazy group of people over at Cascade Falls. Everybody on top of each other, fighting outside of zone. I like the fact that Dropped is disengaging right now, because Space Station Gaming do not want to have any part in what's going on at this point. Zen on just 10 HP is being chased by Furia as well, as finally Slepton are going to arrive to the fight. We'll see what they can do if they find a couple members of HCE actually double, triple entering the same door together. Watson fence right in front, and an Arc Star will make them back off as Slepton have to play the height now. Zen's down to that knock from Furia, and what was a fight with 4 squads has turned into 2 fights with 2 squads apiece. One that Slepton is right now handily winning, having taken out Crook and Zenial, even finishing off the third to take out HCE once and for all.
Well, HCE might be down here, but you have to worry. Furia right across. We saw them chasing down SSG. They do manage to get the full 3 back up, but his Watson already beginning to make an entrance. Has that Digisight right in the middle of that smoke. It's the prime situation for them, as meanwhile, NRG taken out in your feed.
14 squads left. We're already in placement point territory, but Furia have never relied on those. It goes hard indeed, and so does Watson jumping in, maybe going a little bit too hard and getting out just in the nick of time. Zera takes a good bit of damage as well, and the defense is good for Psycho, but it isn't good enough as Psycho gets taken down, and Furia get to push as 3 to finish off this squad.
You talked about it, Dan. Their 3v3 potential is still so unbeatable. This team takes fights like no other. They heard, slept on, they saw the mistakes, they saw them ready and able, and now have picked up a wealth of the current KP in this lobby. Still a rotation head. Meanwhile, for BR Demons, trying to push into a very similar building all the way here on the outskirts of our current zone.
Reeds gets right back up onto the roof, but it's Aiden that is really suffering right now. A little bit of a split fight has left BR Demons without a whole lot of pressure. Reeds comes around the side and finds a good bit of damage onto Nizel, and Jaguar is taking him out, actually, as the split fight works out for BR Demons and gives everyone their individual chance to pop up, really highlighting Aiden the Destroyer there.
At the end of the day, it was as close as it gets in terms of the health there in those moments, and obviously it was kind of that back-ended angle from Aiden that provided success towards that fight. I'm actually surprised. Luminosity, they kind of give up their position. Now, obviously, they were a duo in that situation, losing on Nizel incredibly early on, but still could have gone potentially much, much worse. We get a nice overview here of the POI Direct where, yes, we'll be seeing this zone continue to pull even further into the only squads not currently in play being that of Tripods, ESA, and Furia.
I'm struggling looking at the map to determine whether it really is just, there we go, a couple members stacked on top of each other, finally revealing themselves as Furia will be able to make their way in right next to the tripods that you mentioned earlier. Tripods, interestingly enough, having that beacon scan that lets them know that, yes, indeed, they are pretty darn far out of zone. They've committed to the fight, though, have tripods, and actually taken a decent amount of just poke combat from afar on the way in. Where Furia have KP and can play a little bit more confidently, tripods still need to play things relatively safe to make sure that they don't bottom out in a game like this. Despite the fact they've already got some placement points, it is not enough.
Obviously, they've spotted them out here. A big crack found. Kraber in the hands of Gent looking for another shot there. Furia now in prime real estate ahead, hopefully to make their way forward. Immediately taking just as bad as a shot back. Gent forced away for now. Still has bullets to spare in this Kraber.
The Gent's kind of popping off with this Kraber, and it was a Kraber that caught me by surprise, too. The fact that tripods get that damage and aren't able to finish off the kills does mean that a few bullets from the Kraber will just be used to zone, but it's not an entire waste, as they still manage to hang on to this POI and have the ability to rotate in even later. They're grouping up on the high ground and allowing the rotation to happen right below them in the meantime. Remainder of ESA out here, as Phony is off healing up to regroup with Luda and Capra. Do need to make their way into Downed Beast as well, and something you would have noticed on the map is that there's not a whole lot of space left in Downed Beast to capitalize on. A Valcolt from ESA could just as well win them as lose them the game.
It's got to be one that comes through here in seconds ahead. Obviously, tripods. I don't know if they'll be able to set up Gent with a immaculate Kraber. Instead, no. It's ESA flying through the air as just about everyone peppers them in the sky, likely to land on the far back end here.
Where Optic are.
Yeah, I was about to say this, where Optic is, right underneath in a singularity to potentially pull them out. Optic need to clean house here. Why? Because this is a great spot for the future. Half and half. Optic and TSM collaborate to find those kills.
This is exactly the danger that we talked about. It either wins you the game right there by getting you an incredible spot, or you're out. And unfortunately, ESA flipped that weighted coin and found themselves on the wrong end of it. FaZe, interestingly enough, also a little bit on the wrong end of this game as well. Having already lost one, they haven't given up their power position yet, but it's made this game a whole lot harder for the squad in a great spot otherwise. Tripods landing underneath, take that same gamble that ESA did, and get chunked out, but aren't down just yet. Jet popping this bat underneath is going to get third party pretty darn soon, and in come the shots from yet another squad as tripods go down, and bots continue their dominance inside Downed Beast.
For the rest of these squads here, they've now laid stake and full claim to the home they call the Downed Beast, but we look towards that zone. Furia, though, actually one of the few squads still on their rotation in as well. They've actually opted to take this one more directly to the sand ahead. You can see some shots spared out in full, but coverage to work with. But Dia, this is what I wanted to touch on. That zone pulls away from this POI. That height no longer available. And for teams like Optic, who set up really early on, they actually have a much better pull than expected. And it's something that you set up at the beginning of the game.
It's nice to see it come through. Is every time that I say something like that, I go, "Oh God, is this going to be right?" And I'm glad that Optic and I were able to make a good call there. And certainly for Optic, I mean, you have to be happy. The fact that they've been adapting over the course of the past few weeks to the meta this year has been really impressive. MPS doing their own adaptation as bots have already been taken out, unseated by yet a new champion. And MPS want a challenge for that title. Madness with a Kraber doesn't quite finish off the kill, but Hal is down, and MPS do have the numbers advantage as Pow Pow does bite the dust for over-peaking. MPS lose a second half. They lost control of this fight. Madness drops down and takes down TSM, and he can't get out in time as the third party from Furia rolls on.
Furia, they slip in at the last moment to pick up the final kill there, but for a second, MPS had done it with no seconds to find themselves back into a place of health. They were able to pick up and pull off against two, and that's something that will hopefully reflect in the future when we take a look at the end of this game leaderboard. For now, though, it's a position that they've given away towards Furia, one that gives them their next space into this zone.
So it's so good for Furia as well, because though it might not be the position that Optic have, just the amount of cover that the inside of Downed Beast provides you, even the low ground that you already have, is immaculate. Now, on the outside, BR Demons are trying to make this game a little bit more difficult. They, fighting up against Team Smiley, have been cut off by a nice Catalyst ult. Not going to deter Reeds, though, as he does pop through, even eating that slow and a lot of damage to be able to make the damage stick. The BR Demons still have the opportunity, though, to claim a section of this building, as they already have laid out an immense amount of pressure.
Well, for BR Demons, they've regrouped for the time being. Obviously, above, you've got squads like FaZe. So for themselves ahead, they need to potentially push the trigger eventually. Now, obviously, they can wait for the Dark Veil to come down and maybe regroup onto the position held here above. But obviously, you can see Hawks ahead. Furia, Optic, potentially eyeing this one out.
BR Demons are re-peaking this. Reeds takes the chunk, but it's just the aggression from BR Demons that is eventually going to get them a good position here. They are pushing Team Smiley back into a corner. There isn't a lot of room to maneuver, and when you don't have a whole lot of space to move in, that's when you can be the most susceptible, especially with the nades coming in right now. Team Smiley have to all group up on this corner. The Arc Stars continue to push them around. BR Demons know exactly what they're doing, and demonically, they are going to push in and take already first kill, knocking down Gambit. The job of BR Demons is done. They have the inside of the building. Now what else can they take?
And at the end of the day here for Smiley, they've managed to continually survive ahead, but completely split and slowly being picked apart. Surprisingly, a few rats here. Nano being one of them, just hiding away in the fence line for BR Demons. They start trying to set themselves up in the zone ahead. They're going to be meeting potentially right alongside Optic in just a second.
BR Demons cleaning out their backs first. So we talked about there being no such thing as a rat. They want to make that a reality. Smile gets taken down, and now the second rat has revealed itself, turning into a veritable buffet for the BR Demons, who are taking their time on the rotate in. SSG, not so lucky, do get taken out. As for the meantime, Furia gets to lay out a little bit of mobile cover in the form of these Smelts and Let's Panthers unleash himself onto Duplex. Optic are melting in the face of Furia right now, who are having yet another great game.
For Furia here, we talk about God spots ahead. We tailor Optic this entire game, and Furia in seconds pull away a position like that. Meanwhile, FaZe, who were above on that down beast, we talk about transitioning away from that POI. They were unable to do so. Officially, the only full three-man squads left in the game are BR Demons and Furia, and I'll tell you who has zone pull.
It's unfortunate for the BR Demons. They've got to walk on over here. But the nice thing is they can collect 2 kills on the way. Optic Gaming now out. And CLG were the ones to claim it. So as they get taken down, it is just going to be the 1 kill point for BR Demons, who down on this low ground have to face off against Furia. Our final 3v3 can end in disaster. It can turn on but a moment's notice, and Furia going aggressive here has his Watson to take him forward. Zero's already found the knock. Furia get 2, and they're not even doing them the decency of making it look difficult. Furia take game 3 and their 2nd win in a row.
We talk about zone pulls. We talk about setup god spots in the face of a straight 3v3. We forget at the end of the day, don't sit there and pretend like there may have or may not have been one. We both know there isn't.
I mean, there might be.
Okay, all right. Dropship has made its way through here. You can see where the zone is laying itself out. A deeper pull as it looks to be towards the northern side. This one could even carry even further. Yes, right there. Survey camp, epicenter, directly towards the edge of these POIs. Personally, between the two of us, when we see zones like this, we start to praise positionings, especially out towards those ridge lines above survey camp, where you're able to kind of play off of the slight height available.
It would be just a textbook finish if it were to pull up.
Okay, all right.
My God, you cannot imagine, Zephyr, how much it would be published by EA. I'm sure.
Okay.
Now, bots, for their part, will have a pretty easy rotate into that zone as long as they do it early, because the gap actually between where they're landing in Fragment in the west and Survey Camp and its associated areas is sort of cut across by this wide swath of open area. For that reason, I like that they're moving now, and I'm a little bit surprised by how quickly NRG are making their way from staging. Having landed and looted there very fast, they are pushing up right behind HCE. Unfortunately, HCE had the fear of God put into them early and have rotated before this was even a problem.
Something that just spoke to them in the embers of their rotation. Now, I'll tell you what, we didn't talk about it much, but Energy did see a slightly more successful game in our third here. Now, obviously, they picked up some very early kills on Stormpoint, weren't able to hold on to their position in Central Down Beast, but it was better. It was better. It was an inkling of the performance, the dominance that we saw from this roster, but not quite those big wins that we know this team for. Now, obviously, as they play right up towards this choke, might be coming right behind HCE. For them, they take to the skies.
And HCE will at least be able to spot that out as well as any squads ahead of them. With the way that they've timed this, they should be able to find a good spot in Survey Camp as well. Not a whole lot of squads there yet, as the guard is rotating up as well and may even have a building taken away from them by this untimely landing. HCE have prioritized a building that did already have a little bit of attention on it, as FaZe throws some shots in, but it's not going to actually take anyone down just yet. FaZe actually mirroring the exact same setup and making use of the Watson to keep this place nice and safe.
For both of these squads, it's likely a spot that will last. When we see zones that tend to carry this direction, those who position themselves in our 4 survey camp buildings early on usually tend to continually survive. But it's not that spot that we talk about that we love. And it's not a spot that even a team like Furia currently holds, as their attention is more akin towards potentially picking up more kills.
Isolated 3v3s, isolated 3v3s. That's what Furia are looking for, and oh my lord, it looks like TSM were out looking for blood as well, having swapped right back on over to the Fuse. They've got the knock onto Skittlecakes, the full thirst as well, and fighting a literal uphill battle does not seem to bother them, as Rep sticks yet another member of Optic with the Knuckle Cluster and does some nice exit damage, buying TSM all the height in the world around the edge of ring.
Now they gatekeep this particular choke, and we know for a fact there's a plethora of teams that have yet to make their way in. Maybe they can expend some time here for a moment further, potentially pick up the remnants here of Optic, or maybe some extra kills from some of those other lollygagging teams. Either way, once they've at least capitalized, I'd like to see them make some more dominant rotations ahead. A Fuse in a prime position can be such a danger to so many squads, especially on World's Edge, where so many teams try to position themselves and play deep into these buildings.
With the the Legend swap up. We'll be keeping our eyes on how they perform, but unfortunately, BR Demons aren't going to be performing at all this game. Taking out the first squad to fall after making it all the way to second last game. Now they get a breather.
And I was about to say that's a team currently in third overall here. For them as a whole, it's going to be a difficulty now with only 2 games on their belt. They don't want to be losing any of that potential prizing that we talked about in that top 4, and they are, of course, points away from being dropped. Out here towards the chokes, Luminosity slowly fighting their way through some shots in the air, of course, but obviously not quite ahead. You can see TSM on the map finally making their way away from the choke.
I'm keeping my eyes towards this southern end as well as ESA rotate up from Thermal Station. And we've got MPS making their way in right behind Optic. What we know is only a 2-person team and a potentially really dangerous position for them if they get caught out. Right now, a speedy rotation into Fragment, followed up by what we know ESA is bringing down the line as well. We'll keep Optic alive, but now in the sightlines of Pow, I believe, who should have seen them, was waiting for the shots to ring true, and I think he got some in.
Either way, Optic, they don't wait for you to figure it out. They're on their way out. They are on tail end of landslide here. They've lost Skittlecakes completely, and now just try to find the remnants of survivability. Now, obviously, MPS, they pull back, put themselves in a complete redeploy, and now are heart of Fragment. It looks like no one currently exists here, so they still got a rotation ahead.
Now, they'll be able to take a similar spot to what we saw at the beginning of the game, making use of the zip line in the building right ahead of them, right on top of CLG, actually, should they get a nice push or a bit of damage. CLG's shielding isn't that great, and there's a lot of firepower that can come up the hill at them. For SSG, however, they have taken a totally different approach to this. Furia could spot them, but I don't know what's going to happen here.
The zone,
thrilling.
Yeah. Nothing.
I wonder what the thought is there for Space Station, because they're not in a building. They must just be waiting for someone to run by them and not notice.
I mean, obviously there might have been something that took place earlier on that put them into a position of pressure. And obviously, if you're up against Furia, then you could potentially see something. But as we tune back over, they've finally started to actually grace their footsteps across Countdown and slowly into the Skyhook areas. Optic, they made their way even further out from Landslide, even deeper here towards this POI, wrapping all the way around, trying to take the longest route possible to garner them as much safety.
It's surprising that Optic really haven't given up on any of the hustle. They have taken basically the beeline for this next position over, like we said, by Countdown. SSG, though, slowly but surely moving up. They didn't even fire there, but Drop now is going to go for it. Surprisingly close! Apex Legends becomes a horror game as Drop does find enough pressure to push Panders off the building, take him down, and SSG play defensively for the moment. This could be a problem as Zara actually goes down, and somehow, some way, SSG are surviving this onslaught that they began, taking out Furia. Optic coming in for the third party. It's just 2 against what I believe is 3 as the res did go off. Thermites are wreaking havoc though, and the frag going to be almost enough to take out Optic. Whittling down Duplex's shields. Noct has another nade into the building. Great angle from the Valkyrie as Duplex has the opportunity with this Seer to finish off the squad. SSG go down. 17 teams left, and Optic in that 2v3 find 3 kills.
I give praise to SSG for playing that one as controlled as they did, letting Furia pass them by and then sneaking behind them for the Wombo combo. But even they could not reset. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Dia, that's a straight 2v2 that you're just losing out on in that moment. And for Optic, I mean, that's something that they may have not expected.
This was a nice turn of events for them as TSM gatekeeping. Once again, as you called out, they just move a little bit further to the north and try and make exactly the same move, keeping squads at bay with the long range that they've got, not only in the weaponry, but afforded to them by the fuse. Luminosity trying to make that their own rotation way further out, are going to be eating zone for just a little while, losing meds to try and get themselves to a better position without facing off against TSM, as ESA start running up on yet another squad, and we've got their fight against MPS kicking off now. Madness getting taken down just a little bit, tickled in the health department as MPS do jump back and play defensively for now.
This is tough. They're tucked in there like a turtle, and this is allowing angles from ESA, but they leap out of the building here to find the first knock onto Phony. The rest of the team now targeted ahead. MPS is looking low, but they've got numbers advantage. Meanwhile, shots from across. Maybe potentially the third party here.
Phony played that really well to lay in the damage, but MPS simply played that better. They managed to outlive ESA, and though they lose yet another Shub, still alive for now, maybe able to get out 50 HP. Fun is on the run, chasing him down. Without the Bloodhound, though, I do wonder whether he'll be able to catch up. Charge Rifle could spell the end of MPS, and it does! Shub down for good, and we're into 15 squads. Placement point territory, baby.
That's just not nice there. And meanwhile, it looks like someone else has taken residency on this building. A redeploy ahead here. A quick snipe, and it's none other than the duo knocked down here. The rest trailing. TL set themselves up for the rest, the perfection to pick up the extra 2 KP on their belt.
I appreciate that Dupe turned around to try and lay in some damage as well. Didn't beam it up, didn't drop all the weapons. Took that death with honor and will be sent to Ragnarok. As the tripods take an engagement of their own, they'll try and put Luminosity in exactly the same place and manage to, as we barely even get to look at the character models as they hit the ground.
Well, for Luminosity, last time we tuned in with them, we knew they were being pressured by TSM and likely put into a situation where they were far too damaged, right for the pickings here for Tripod. Meanwhile, for them, a little bit low in their position. Curious to see how they'll find their next rotate, especially with so many of these teams sitting right above them on the line above. And whoa, TSM split a Y, boy.
Now, this is a lot of area coverage that they're getting, but I guess a lot of confidence that they have to be able to do it. For now, controlling this zone isn't going to be too hard, but with 44 seconds left on this next ring pull, we do have to group up and think about the rotation sooner rather than later. Right ahead of them, we know bots sit on the ridge line in that building right between Climatizer and Epicenter, and maybe what they focus is Verhulst is going to start grouping up with the squad. 26 seconds now on the zone.
It's tough. That bridge is usually a place of contest for a lot of teams, and that's why you see even Tripods making their way back towards it. A big break here from Hal might give them the impressions they need to finish this fight. Dodging on the scan right into the grav lift, and another break on Horizon in response.
Hal really is not playing games right now, taking no prisoners. He cracks 2 shields before getting that shield bat off, and now starts to rotate away. Both squads disengaging as TSM pay enough respect, and Tripods were pushed back convincingly enough. Actually dropping down to the low ground right now. They're going to try and pull off that late Valk ult that might give TSM the bridge ultimately again. It's a lot of zone damage that you're going to eat for this though, and bots are going to start taking shots at the sky, maybe giving TSM the opportunity to rotate past them. Tripods are acting as a distraction as they hit this low ground, and even here, I wouldn't call them safe yet.
Not quite. Teams could potentially rotate from behind, especially those right above, but it is something that was surprisingly allowed for the Tripods team. Meanwhile, for TL, on their way out from the train line, a squad ahead, and they're caught with their pants down.
It's a nice couple shots, but no knock yet for TL. As we had illustrated earlier, take a look at the kill feed. We do indeed have bots caught unawares by TSM. Tripods acting as that appropriate distraction. gives them the opportunity to take height where TL were unable to find kills. TSM have been able to not only take them, but reset now and take yet another fight up against Team Smiley. With reps around the corner, he's got the Mastiff out, but doesn't quite get any damage down yet. Shield swap should be available in one of these boxes as Verhulst and Hal hold down the other angles.
Trying to position themselves with the off angle here to potentially find some of those initial knocks, maybe to give access towards Reps to finish the job with damage of his own as he wraps around the corner here. TSM, though, they spot out what looks to be a disengage, and they want to capitalize. Verhulst and Hal already on their way down. The beams from afar with the 301. A shield break, but not quite the knock, but that's enough of damage. That's a potential go button.
Good damage once again. They're still resetting. So as TSM take a break, it's going to be TL that keep pushing forward. Sykes going crazy with the wingman up close. Does only get that one knock, but it's bought enough time for his team to reset. Bought enough time for TL to push forward. They lose another, and it's up to Fun. How have they lost control of this? Fun may still do it. Still has that car. Hits the reload real quick. Gets the damage, but can't even crack shields as TL bite the dust in the face of CLG.
What started out so good for TL, they had the advantage, the numbers, even the positioning of height to potentially find their success. Didn't quite come through here. Look at these initial knocks. Look at the health ahead here, and everything just whiffs when it couldn't.
Really tragic ending, of course, for TL is now they're going to go back to the drawing board. Didn't even manage to make the top 5 this time. We'll have an opportunity to in the next 2 games. For Slept On, they're cut out before they get access to the late game as well. And Tripods are going to meet this fate as a fusel rains down from TSM. They'll be collecting even more kills here, and there is no way to escape it. Tripods are taken down.
Meanwhile, for CLG, out from the train line, now being shot from angles to spare. Mamba and Nano, they've got extra health here, especially up against Smiley. Kuzume down, Blakeu from behind, picked apart as CLG running this lobby from the west, but now caught off by the guard.
Good shots at the very least, managed to shut down that res. And the guard do get these cleanups, this loot, but not the kills associated with it. Instead, that's going to go to likely complexity, as they found Mamba right next door, somehow able to survive into this next zone. Let's all give Mamba a small round of applause in our hearts for that. But it's the guard that had rotated out, and the guard that still are going to be needing to rotate further in towards where TSM already are, and have to push even further into this northern end.
A bit of an interesting zone end here. This one out towards the northwestern side of Survey Camp. None of these buildings particularly looking that good in final play for most of these teams. I like TSM, though, albeit far. They at least have an outward position, potentially something to capitalize. What I'm curious to know is who's on the outside? Who has Godspot right now?
If I'm not mistaken, NRG were
I think
out
it's NRG.
there earlier. Yeah, I think it's them. Nobody quote me on it, but I think I saw them there, and this would be a real crazy turn of events if it ended up being NRG, because they could finally take back what has been, I would say, a pretty difficult game for them so far. TSM have already managed to do that. Oh, yeah, it is NRG. Sitting up here on the height with all these Watson fences in front of them. We've got a squad taken to the sky. That's TSM in the air right now, and NRG have to keep them back in order to maintain dominance over this height.
The former kings of Oversight now laying claim, stake to the Godspot, and a massive EMP central of Survey Camp. Complexly likely the first to fall here. Shiny picked apart. HCE out from their building, now from behind, being peppered as well. Hill the first to fall. Crook taking from a thermite, and several ordnances continuing to push them back as FaZe is finding shots from their own building.
That nade really hurts, and with CLG gone and guard having to push into TSM, we're about to experience the true meaning of pain. FaZe equally
Wow.
sitting inside their own building, managed to survive for now. 5 teams left, and FaZe barely managing to get sniped down into this ring. Do fortunately get their Watson alongside them with 46 seconds left to plan their escape. TSM right in front, evidently just not shooting at them as FaZe get to pop out here and clean up some kills. HCE now taken down, and TSM still sitting on height, have been unable to claim a kill on this next zone pull.
It's tough to say guard. They haven't made rotations out. They know for a fact that they're at a disadvantage from an angle like this. TSM easily able to prepper, to punish, to pulverize what exists in this building here. You can see them set up and ready to go. They know for a fact that zone is going to squeeze them out like toothpaste. But instead, they dive deep.
I love that move, as unfortunately TSM do lose too. They lose everyone as FaZe clean up, but what a creative move from TSM to at least try and make that push work. Well, it doesn't go well for them now. Guard haven't exactly gotten the best end of the deal either. Whittled down to just the one member against 2 full squads, FaZe and NRG, both of whom control crucial ground for the Guard squad.
Oh, but I'll tell you what, NRG's controlling even crucialer ground here. Dia, Guild, and the rest set up in the prime position to pump out damage when it counts. Immediately there with the scout, RKN is spotted and dropped here. The rest of the Guard stuck behind the pillar and sadly eliminated in their final moments. Meanwhile, for FaZe, looks like they're pickings as well here.
Much they can do, but FaZe do get a little bit of hype for now. If they can take down Sweet, they've got a shot at this. Flesh gets found by Guild, and NRG need to play this slow, even from the height that they cannot challenge effectively. Guild is instead going to pop down low, see if he can find a few cheeky shots here and there. Gets that shield break. The swap isn't good enough, and snipe down. It has fallen. NRG still have to finish off the remaining members of FaZe, but it should be easy for them. Is down on this low ground. Slurp cannot do anything, even from height. He's gonna take
okay.
Alright, we're having a little bit of fun as FaZe know that they can't win this game and instead are gonna let NRG finish the job. That's a good win for NRG in our first game of World's Edge.
It's about time. It is more than about time that NRG finally source a win for themselves. When we came into World's Edge, I talked about it, Dia. Finally kind of getting...
That actually really is looking tempting right now. I'm taking a look at, of course, who's going to have first knowledge on that. TSM over by Lava Siphon will, and interestingly enough, Tripods have not one, but 2 beacons that they could theoretically hit with their Overlook and No Name split that they've initially landed on. It is even further thickening the plot. Going to be the Smiley lads in Geyser that have a decent spot, at least for Ring 2, though we're not sure where this zone goes yet. Zephyr, I'm sure you have a few predictions.
I was about to say, it could be, obviously, we look towards that zone. Look how it kind of cuts off the cusp and not quite directly, deeply pulling into the first zone, kind of nesting in there. That sometimes can allude to the fact that the zone actually is going to be slightly carrying further north, not into Geyser direct. Usually with Geyser zones, we see that zone pull more dominantly, directly into the POI. So maybe potentially something of a choke finish. I talked about the blue boxes at the start. For those, it's these crates that you see ahead of Slurp here in the kind of stack out towards the southern side of that choke that sometimes can be where the zone finishes. Either way, Dia, both of these positions can be good. Personally, I like a little bit more of that northern side, as Geyser can get a little difficult to rotate out of if our zone does pull away from it.
That's going to be one of the dangers of teams that do prioritize Geyser, because I would be surprised if nobody does it this game. Simultaneously, I mean, if you do pull Geyser and the zone goes with you, so easy to gatekeep everyone else. And if you pull Geyser and the zone goes away from you, you're probably dead. It's really difficult to rotate out of, and that's just the harsh reality of World's Edge, and specifically these eastern pulls.
Meanwhile, for NRG, here are winners of our previous World's Edge game. It looks like some shots were expended out, some friendly foes ahead, but they are quickly pushed away. It's none other than CLG A team that, while the two of us haven't had much discussion over, currently sit quite high on the board today.
They're actually doing pretty darn well. Well, Complexity, even with their confidence starting the day, have been a little shaken, pushed down back onto the low ground. A early rotation up from guard and into Geyser. They're going to try to give us something a little bit different, and it's not just them. TSM and Optic set up here as well. All three of these teams going to try and play hard zone for Geyser. This is going to be a tough game, Zephyr, because we could see this go easily in one of their directions and just as quickly slip away from all three.
You know how bad some of these positions can get if you are capitalized one man down. It's surprising that no one in the end finds themselves in dire straits here. For HCE, they get themselves set up on the backside of this choke here. Now, of course, with Hill on that crypto, going to be able to provide quite a bit of information for the rest of this team and may start positioning and lay themselves ahead. You can see them with that ping. They're betting this one to be a deeper Geyser pull. Those boxes towards the southern side can usually be a dominant position if that zone does carry that direction.
I saw Crypto take a look at those banners, and he's such a liar. 0 squads nearby. 0 squads my butt. Everybody is in Geyser right now, and it's terrifying. But, as you talked about, the scouting did at least reveal some really useful information, most notably that southern side of Geyser by the tree was open. Now, capitalized on by Complexity, though, is it's already outdated. Tripods making their way in as well, and all of a sudden, there's nowhere left to hide. The team Smiley get taken down. Those who land in Geyser couldn't hold on to it.
Looks like we saw Tripods make their way in, likely either from behind or just into the area as a whole to pick this one up, finish the job. Now, obviously, this building can lay and stake a claim just as dominantly as the position that we talk about from Complexity there. For Tripods, though, their benefit is they get the extra loot in their hands of Smiley alongside them.
Tripods, they've got a really nice spot for the mid game. Late game, this one can get a little bit tough. Despite the loot that they've been able to pick up, keep your eyes on how this team will start prioritizing the rotations later on, as Complexity being right in their path can really mess them up for later.
Yeah.
For the moment, they're not the only ones that could be messed up. SSG being pushed real hard by ESA, have Frex on less than 50 HP and dropped. He's literally one tap right now. Zenile is going to be able to hop around the outside of this building, lay down some good cover fire as SSG continue to pull off an effective retreat. Was that a stick? 75 for a crack. Would normally be a push, but can SSG even go for that right now?
Looks like the team maybe a bit pressure dropped on the opposite side of that angle there. There's some major cracks, like you've said, that should be the go button for this squad. Finally, with Frex on that bat, may push this one forward, but maybe the return has already come through the response of a retreat.
Dangerous play for Frex right now. The only one on the roof is going to get spotted. Isn't really able to deal enough damage as well. Pulls up at that little bit of an assist. And like that, is able to effectively claim this roof for the moment. Kill feeds lighting up is everywhere. Squads are fighting. TSM notably showing up in that kill feed on the positive end of it, as SSG managed to keep themselves from doing it on either. They're not getting kills, they're not losing anything, but they are losing time, Zephyr, and that's starting to worry me.
We'll see if they can maybe finish this one off quickly or put themselves in zone. Maybe a position ahead here. Stormtroopers, BR Demons. For the Demons, they were a squad that fell very early on in our first game of World's Edge. For Stormtroopers, they themselves just trying to survive. But Aiden from above puts the nails in the coffin here. A response that is still likely found, though. A 2v1 situation. Vayne with his own beam, and now 1-for-1. Reeds with just a little bit of health left to finish off the Troopers.
That got really close, way too close for comfort, but the BR Demons do come out on top, as demonic they are. We've got another fight breaking out here, as well as Luminosity have to go up against MPS. taken down. Pow. Now they've got the small edge, but it's a re-knock, and Madness goes down to make it a 2v1 in the favor of Luminosity. Nizel, no shield on the low ground, almost gets taken out again. One tap on him, but Jaguaris covers, and with that last diva shot, takes down MPS just in the nick of time.
I was about to say Nizel was looking worse for wear there, but Jaguares puts the chunk in the Eva. Now for ESA up against Furia here. Both teams actually looking particularly dangerous. It looks like his Watson already eliminated in full. Central position of Harvester. Looks like they were pushed away by ESA to begin with, but have great responses here. A grab lift and a push ahead. Panders and Zera looking low. The first drop down as Panders is in the interior.
If only Panders were on top there, but as soon as you see that knock go down, you know there's nothing you can do. Rez is going to go up for ESA, and Bloodhound doesn't have any verticality. Boney going to follow up on this to try and find a kill. Gets a decent bit of damage down, but with 2 kills already in the hands of ESA, this chase could easily overextend them. Take a look as we see Space Station Gaming likely rotating through once again.
Capra down there as well to put the pressure, but yes, as you made mention, SSG with their rotate capitalized just as quickly, and now they've got that extra information potentially regarding the ESA squad here.
Already taking down one member of it. Things are going to get difficult for them, and they continue to be difficult for Luminosity as once again, superhero Jaguaris saves the team. It's like a highlight reel for Jaguaris this game, and so far it's net them top 15. SSG denying that same from ESA as they get taken down. A little overzealous on the Furia push, and the dominoes fall for Esports Arena.
I have to say, it's so surprising there because we saw what was an early position of death from his Watson in the central area of Harvester. I can't believe they didn't spot out SSG, who we both know, obviously dramatic irony, the fact that they were there for quite some time. Either way, it puts them to rest and back to the drawing board for what will be their last game of World's Edge here.
So many teams are about to be so sad, Zephyr. I know you called this out earlier. I know we were all scared of it, but we are indeed heading north. This will not be the Geyser zone that so many teams have invested in.
Guys, I told you at the beginning. Either way here, if your name is either FaZe, TL, or even BR Demons, you are loving potentially what you see in BR Demons, or my apologies, FaZe in a prime position, obviously, to get that zone read as well, have that extra kind of oomph regarding the position ahead for themselves.
That's the real downfall of Geyser this time around. The fact that it not only looked like the zone could have pulled there, but there also wasn't a beacon in Geyser proper for the crypto squads to be able to scan. Left everybody wondering what was going on. Nobody had any data, and now it's just luck of the draw, it seems, that has ended up netting some of these positions to the more aggressive teams, and it's how it's going to go. Edge squads that do end up getting there a little bit late, taking the spots that not everybody thinks are going to be in the zone like this, ended up benefiting simply because of this unexpected pull. And oh lord, you called it out again, but I mean, we've still got those blue boxes available just off to the north of the BR Demons.
Blue box finish, and potentially one more team to also put themselves there as well. SSG, notice we caught it at the very last second, making their way out from zone, from Harvester, to come through on that west-hand side. That'll be something that could be potentially dangerous there. Slept on, finished off as the rest of these teams, well, they've got the storms coming here, out of Geyser and into the fray. What's that one saying you always say? It's into the something?
Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Things are going to get rough. Squads are going to get cooked as they are forced to move from Geyser, but they've got a minute to do it. And you do at least I will say, get to choose your chef. Will you be sautéed in the pan of the BR Demons, or will you be pan-fried at the hands of Team Liquid? It looks like TSM, for the moment, are opting into the BR Demons option, and maybe they can claim the title of Master Chef.
Oh, it's tough, though. They're not the only ones. Our kings of the south, Luminosity, defending against multiple squads, now going to be running right up against TSM. I'll tell you what, if you're TSM, you don't know it, but you do not want to be up against Jaguares right now.
No, he's on a roll, and right now, they're... Honestly, confidence has just got to be through the roof.
Ooh.
Luminosity do quickly get sent back, though, as TSM lay out a good bit of damage and even force out the bubble. An isolated Jaguares could be taken advantage of, as he's barely able to skirt back underneath this bridge. And Optic come in for the sandwich as well, now having angles onto the low ground. They are doing TSM's job for them, pushing out the squad, the only team that could have contested that house, and now taking priority over the bridge. No knocks on Luminosity just yet, means that they get the chance to reset on this low ground, but their escape is looking so much harder.
That's really scary, though, especially for Optic, as they might be forced to contest against just about everyone. TSM, of course, directly ahead. As we both know, this zone continues to pull directly into that choke. TSM, they opt for the sky. Luminosity, Optic, everyone expending the gas here.
The flight of the Valkyrie is up to the sky. Let's see who makes it in, who gets a little bit lucky about these boxes. Luminosity are the ones to be able to jump right on top of them as TSM take the lower ground and immediately find themselves in a fight. They take down the first, CLG losing one member, but TSM losing them all as Demi ends up cleaning up and getting CLG into a decent position if they can reset in time, and it is a big if.
Meanwhile, Geyser, the other choke we haven't tuned into for quite some time. TL, obviously taking advantage of these slow rotos here. Bots quickly eliminated from the other choke as teams like the Guard are paying the price. It's been a while since I've seen the bow check, but it's looking good.
For TL, that's all it's got to do is look even serviceable up here on this height, and it's doing way more. Complexity still trapped in this corner, might get the chance to make it out right now as they are forming up, and nobody is going to be able to stop them. Even now, if they're able to pull up a Valkyrie ult from this angle, Guard aren't in a position to lay down any poke.
They might not have vertical clearance, though. That's something that might just be a shame of the zone there for that team. Either way, they've got to make a decision, because running face first into TL is nothing that between the two of us we could probably predict to garner success. Meanwhile, for FaZe, poked out from behind, the response immediately from Snipe Down. He says, "Gent, not today."
Tries to finish off this kill, needs that shield swap for now. Inside the building, Rez is going to go off. Snipe Down did end up getting that shield swap and ultimately should be all right. But as Slurp gets full thirsted, FaZe are not going to be in the same boat as they were. Now Snipe Down healing up means they've got to rotate in. Do not have the Valk ult to do it. Not that they were likely going to use it anyway, but it sure would have been a nice safety blanket, as they've got to walk it in with a squad still at their back. Tripods still wanting a piece of this, wanting vengeance for their fallen squad mate.
Hey, at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that you've got CLG watching over you like hawks. And we know for a fact Luminosity ahead in the boxes. Love that turnaround from Snipe Down. Could have gone any other way, but as we tune back in, we tune into the death of Tripods.
It almost happened again, too. Taking a look at that replay, things almost once again were up to the SMGs, but for Complexity, that's going to be all they can lean on right now, as TL are farming up on this high ground, taking out Complexity, watching the Guard expire as they throw in that last shot, and now with their own slice of heaven up in this corner. It ain't in the next zone, but it's going to be good enough for now, since they can fire down on FaZe.
They can fire down on FaZe here and maybe even make their way further towards the position right above them. They have this high ground. You gotta be careful, though. BR Demons might have some punishing angles if you position yourself too far forward.
I like the respect from Team Liquid, and for the moment, it's gotten them a decent position. A big concern, though, starts to arise as we realize that Team Liquid, despite the fact they got all those kills, weren't able to get the boxes after them and are running a little bit low in the munitions department, something that could really hurt them later on. It's going to be squad wipes or nothing for Team Liquid as their coffers are coming up on empty.
6 squads remaining. CLG, Luminosity, my apologies, Space Station Gaming out there towards the west, like we talked about from Harvester, TL, FaZe, and more here. TL, I mean, they need to finish the job, because at the end of the day, we talk about 30-second rotation here. As they make their way towards the west, they already know they're going to be contesting against, of course, what is BR Demons and that opposite choke. The last thing they need is a squad running up from their heels to potentially be a threat.
That is going to be the biggest concern for a lot of those teams out in the west. For Team Liquid, their focus is singular. With 5 seconds left, it is to eliminate FaZe. And even now, with the zone starting to close in, it's unlikely they even get too much benefit off of this. It's been a nice swap to the 301 as there goes the first knock. Snipe down is taken out. They've still got one member left. Playing things slow. Team Liquid are going to keep pushing up. CLG even getting involved in this now 3-way fight. Space Station Gaming losing 2 to Luminosity from above and dropped, hoping he can survive just a little bit longer on this. Seer ult gets the data, but unfortunately gets beamed right back. SSG are down. 5 squads left. CLG with just 2 members alive play this little bit of a rock. Well, down here it is all about pushing FaZe. Team Liquid have gone far, but they didn't get FaZe just yet. Instead, it's CLG that pick up that last kill on Abraleli, and FaZe need the loot that comes with this.
TL, the farthest away from this position. Meanwhile, for Luminosity, they send it off of the boxes, pushed off from BR Demons. They want to clean up CLG here, and it looks like they might do just that. But in the meanwhile, they lose out on Jaguares. They lose out on their safety, and now a charge rifle from Fun is likely putting them to rest.
The beacon picked up, but more importantly, the loot that's going to come with it, as Nasal is going to have to hold on for dear life towards this next ring. Is already scanned out, is already taking zone damage, and I'm going to watch that Skynade, because if it connects, it doesn't quite, but would have been a mini defensive bombardment to get them that last kill. TL still in a commanding position. Do have a little ways to go up to the zone. That's where this game can be ripped away from them, because the BR Demons sitting right in front have all the data in the world. They know it's just Neasel. They know Team Liquid is the ultimate goal here.
I'll tell you what, here for BR Demons, they have crafted their victory. It's something I love to say. They were in a position of power towards that choke and are now in a direct 3v3 here. They've got an advantage in terms of the pull for now, but more than that, they've got big damage, a break, and a weakened, resourceless TL.
They really do. BR Demons playing this really well with a lot of damage up to 30-30 on the flat line. Their heavy ammo connecting and really nothing that can be done about it. Fortunately, there's a crack onto Reeds that gives TL the opportunity to push up, but Fun's already down. Another crack goes off as well. Vayne almost gets taken out, is still actually going to fall, but it is a trade as BR Demons whittle down mastery of their own rotations and avoiding unnecessary fights. Now, while they did break out here and there, I think ultimately it was a success story. So we'll keep our eyes out for Zone 2. And interestingly enough, this time Tripods will not have twice the info. Oh no, they will. They will. They were covering one of the beacons. They again have 2. How are they getting away with this?
More than enough information here for Tripods to stake claim over a dominant position, and it looks like we get one of those special zones right in the heart of Fragment here. Usually the ones that pull directly towards the center. We get those big splits on the bridge right in the middle of our Fragment.
Complexity. They've got this info as well. They land right in the center of Fragment East, and have that beacon scan that I'm sure they've already collected at this point in the game. Complexity's movement is now going to be really interesting to watch, because while I do theoretically like the buildings on World's Edge, Fragment buildings are tough to hold on to.
For them, obviously, they need a big game. We started off with some narrative regarding their consistency, especially among that of the Pro League, but currently they sit in 14th with only 19 points, really losing their footing after kind of popping up a few times on Storm Point here today. So if there's a chance to display yourself and find at least a recuperation for yourself, it'd be this.
Ooh, the guard moving up right alongside Complexity. I don't know if they got this zone. Oh, of course they did. They've got the crypto. And since they were able to get that, I really don't mind their spot either. The broken building just off in Frag West actually ends up providing a lot of great cover for teams in the late game. Although early, it can be a bit rough to capitalize on.
Now, obviously, with this zone, it is particularly interesting because you get so many teams holed up in all of these buildings here, and it really does leave quite a number alive in the end before it kind of directly splits in half between either side of the fragment.
Now, bots have got a good spot as well, but like you talked about, having the two specific ways that this can pull is you aren't going dead center here. Does have the opportunity to punish them later on. RKN actually swooping out here, maybe making use of a little bit of that replicator in market, is running the risk of being taken down pretty severely, as only white shields with almost no rotation from the guard could really hurt them. HCE stacked up in here as well, and difficult to push out of, but likewise difficult to push into building. Smiley holding one of their own, and Optic showing up as well. A lot of these teams recognizing that if you aren't here to claim a building, you are not going to get to play the late game.
Real estate for sale, and it's all cheap. It must be the 80s. For these teams, they've gotten themselves a house, something that we'll see be unavailable shortly here. For Optic, they finally regroup now all together as round one does begin to close. There's still a lot of spacing for the rest of these teams here, but as you've made mention of, quickly closing down here towards launch site. Who else but Jaguarez to find a drop?
Of course. I love that today is the story of GigaChad Jaguarez, a member of Luminosity that does not get that much attention. Now that they've gotten the opportunity to push up and finish off 2 kills, slept on, have just one member left standing. It's one member that will be making a final stand up here, with Niesel taking no prisoners and sliding in to eviscerate Slept On.
I like how Slept On very quickly waved their hands above there and then quickly pulled away to just get gutted from behind. In the end, that's it for them here today on Oversight. For, of course, Luminosity, they've got a ways to go, though, for this zone.
They do, and they're going to be running the risk of, as we talked about earlier, just not getting a spot. It's the reality, especially of landing all the way in the south when a zone pull like this does occur, but now they've absolutely embraced that, and you gotta hope that their playstyle is going to be enough to make up for the geographical disadvantage that they'll be at. Well, MPS have managed to get themselves the top floor, a well-coveted area of power. They'll be sitting right next to HCE, and hopefully able to make good use of that low ball to keep themselves nice and topped up as the game goes on. You do require kills to go on around you, though, because if HCE are the ones getting poked at, they're not going to be getting that much sustain.
Furia here on their rotation, they're actually going to be picking up at least this care package for now. Doesn't really give them too much. Something I did want to discuss, though, is that zone pull. We've had a lot of focus towards the east side of Fragment. And sometimes that zone tends to, yes, kind of eclipse on the bridge itself, but then make its way more directly towards the western side of it, where you have that lone building as your finish. And for teams who currently position themselves dominantly in Fragment East, I cannot praise their end game, albeit a good spot to start off with.
It certainly is. Furia, let's see what we can find to praise about them. Already their 3v3s have wowed us today, but SSG have absolutely sniffed this out. Out go the missiles, and looking into Fragment phase are already taken low. 2 down, and Slurp eliminated. Leaves Stormtroopers in command of the building for brief few seconds as TL swoop in, claim that last kill, and all of the loot that comes with it.
And that's really bad, Dia. We're talking about FaZe Clan. FaZe Clan in first place right now. FaZe Clan with 62 points and unable to gain any more here for teams like BR Demons. For Furia, who we currently watch on their fight ahead, it's the perfect opportunity to slip in to victory.
Now, Furia, we're sitting in third going into this game, 6 points behind BR Demons, who had the second place spot. A good game for them can absolutely push him into a top spot, but they haven't gotten knocks, haven't gotten kills, have actually let SSG sit back and run away. Though ESA takes some pot shots at him, this is ultimately going to be a disengage from all 3 squads, as the zone, as you talked about, is going to be ultimately moving everyone. Furia don't want to push into SSG and risk getting 50-50'd no more than they'd like to gatekeep SSG when they eventually have to come to zone just like everyone else.
Now, notice that zone, Dia. It's starting to already begin to split frag there. You can see these back-sided buildings, notably where you see Optic host themselves Smiley as well, starting to get a little bit of the cut, and that should already kind of light a fire under your butt saying, yeah, guys, these types of positions aren't going to be much of anything for these endgame. Still, though, I look towards teams like BR Demons, and I've really got a question. What's the move ahead here?
I will be shocked, speaking of the zone, if this doesn't go to the building where guard are. I'm not saying it's impossible. Yeah. It's certainly possible. But it should be a guard zone. It should be going broken building, and that's got to be on the minds of almost everyone piled in and around Fragment right now. For BR Demons, as you illustrated, maybe a ridgeline move would be good for them. Sort of take it in baby steps, approaching Fragment bit by bit, opening yourself up to try and third-party someone, but Furia could pose a threat to that. Also rotating around the north and being one of the only teams to do so, not someone I'd want to take a 3v3 up against.
I will say for BR Demons, if they do eclipse that ridge line, they've got more problems ahead. TSM have already set themselves up to kind of have that overlook, and we discussed transitions down from that high ground. They actually do work out because there is a level of northern control, especially if we're talking about a Fragment West finish, that do allow you to survive just a bit longer.
My curiosity now lies in where ESA are going, because they didn't actually have to vault there.
Back.
Had a decent spot. I don't know. It was a little bit of a scouting ult for everyone, a reposition. A little bit of a question mark for ESA, as they ultimately gain very little, but that data that came with it. They do drop some meds and will have the ability to rotate now through Harvester, through the northern end of Lava Siphon, and try and take a different entry, but ultimately shouldn't change that much for a squad that is still going to be capped out of frag.
I love the fact that for Furia, they know they excel in these kind of fights towards the edge. And that's why you see them just start to extend themselves as far as possible. Obviously, they're clearing out from their backside to make sure that no squad comes through to potentially take a fight very later on. But it is early, right? We could have some lollygaggers.
Oh, that's one of the most perfect uses of that word ever. I've never found one, but you somehow have. As SSG lollygagging their way into. See, I told you I couldn't find a perfect way.
Not quite.
As they
they make
their
moves.
Way in.
They make
really
moves.
Have.
This is this kind of northern west fragment that I talk about. Obviously, there's only really the northwest side of Fragment in terms of these buildings, but it is something that you don't see a lot of teams setting themselves up to work with. And for SSG, it is a position that should garner them their success if they can defend. We talk about BR Demons, TSM, and even TL, who you see in their own position ahead that likely will start to continue and collapse.
Taking a look at the map, I mean, you talked about TSM and TL earlier. You'll notice no one is to that building directly further south of them. Market is a tough spot to hold. That and the open ground next to the respawn beacon that CLG are really nearby are difficult to time right. As Furia walk up on TSM, though, I'm going to hold the point because we're getting a fight.
Furia here from behind, smoke in play. They've got the digi-sights available to beam in the middle. It reps the first to fall. They take out that singularity for now. Rolling Thunder does come through, but they don't garner themselves any further knocks yet.
By show of hands, who else knew that Bangalore's passive was to insta-delete reps? Because I sure didn't, and I didn't know this third party was going to come in either. BR Demons made quick work of Verholst, and Hal fell right back to Furia, but now BR Demons getting pushed on themselves. Do eat a lot of damage off of the Furia squad. No knocks on them yet, but they're pushed down onto the low ground. They're scanned. They've got nothing, and they're going to be gate kept by Furia. Run up on by Panders and tried by that wingman. It is time to say goodbye, as Furia do get at least those initial 2 knocks, picking up the shield swap on Panders and looking for the third and final member of BR Demons, now put in the crown for Game 6.
And that's some big names to fall here. BR Demons in 2nd overall, now eliminated. Obviously, points ahead of the rest, but Furia, with those kills on their bed, are looking to take this one away to finish the night in first here.
Team Liquid picked up cursory loot off of that. They just know that a massacre went on to their north, and if you could hear their comms, I'm sure that they're calling out who's done it as well, because nobody plays like Furia do right there. Being able to pick up both those squads in quick succession is big, and for ESA, they may be yet another team to fall, having barely made top 15 now. Luda, 50 HP, gets out to relative safety to heal up, but Capra's not going to make it, and ESA are down a Valkyrie that would be crucial to make it into endgame zones.
Now, they are still a click away from that zone ahead. It isn't a lot of cover, but something I want to point out is, albeit we saw tripods on their rotation towards ESA, it was actually Crook from HCE watching from Fragment who pick up that kill.
That's a big turn for tripods as well. They'd be frustrated by the lack of points that they were able to accumulate in this brief interchange. It may even be the thing that's pushing them to extend so far. As Team Smiley coming up behind them to expose themselves to a bit of risk. It is still tripods that do manage to pick up at least the one last member of ESA, with Luminosity actually picking up the other. Now tripods turn their attention onto Team Smiley, who, as we mentioned, did come up behind them, and they get some good damage down, knocking out Kuzme and opening up this push. A stick has come through, a nice bit of damage, and wow, they just dropped.
Just absolutely obliterated. Deleted. Smithereens, they say. Fertilizer for the grass that litters, of course, the edge of Fragment.
There's just got to be so many weapons. Do you ever think about that when you're walking around? Well, hold the point. Furia, they're pushing down, seeing if they can find some kills. We know that Team Liquid right ahead of them. I've got to be worried about this, but a lot of fence damage just got eaten by Furia. So evidently, this Bloodhound ult going to be more to buy space than anything else, as Furia didn't pick up any kills. Team Liquid have retreated in their entirety and have actually pushed into Market, a very difficult place to defend, especially when it's already held down. They've got a corner, on a single corner to play right now, and no time to heal as they're eating shots from guard as well. Sykes burns down, and it's to the one thermite of Zenial.
We talk about this Northern era being competitive, especially in zones like this. Now for SSG, they're being pushed back after expending the damage that they could on top of TL there. They don't quite eliminate them in full, but it's likely that those kills are, yes, picked up as Furia Watson from behind finishes the job.
Now SSG, again, should know what kind of team that was by the way they were playing, but they're playing things cautiously, as SSG did run into Furia earlier in the game and want to avoid being taken out at their hands. For tripods in this singular, I hesitate to even call it RV, I hesitate to even call it cover here, as a singular sort of train, what is this, train bus, train track? Cart, thank you. Has provided them a few angles from which they are now safe. They do look to be suffering, though, and cannot rest easy yet.
Here's my question. There's a ton of teams we set up on the eastern side of Fragment out of their buildings in this particular close, forced to make moves as they rotate ahead. Obviously, the bridge will give them some wealth of cover to potentially live with, but I know for a fact that no one is safe in this zone close.
Not at all, and the Guard are able to scout out just off to their north what their biggest competition is going to be. Having seen what transpired in Market, having heard the shots and the death boxes drop, Guard should know what's going on up here, should know that whatever squad this is has the biggest threat onto them. Furia, take a moment to set up for success in this next zone close. The exodus from Fragment East is going to be the other big factor.
Something that I love is the fact that, yes, by the way, this zone, it pulls right into the hands of Guard, like you said earlier, but noticeably it does leave so much spacing out towards the north. A big rotation up, a grab lift above. It looks like Monsoon, the first to fall here from Complexity. Duplex trying to string out that scan. Doesn't quite land it, but they've taken away the height.
That's going to be crucial for them to be able to balcony later, but right now dropping down to finish off some kills takes priority. Complexity are down, MPS are out, but it's Optic Gaming that claim at least the 3 kill points for themselves as Tripods push onto HCE, who are already low. We're likely to be seeing even more squads drop, and right here SSG sitting right next to Furia are about to clash as well. Where do you even look? What fights do you focus on? Because so many teams are about to go down. Furia with a great smoke cut Guard out of the fight entirely, but can't quite finish things off as through the wall is going to be a Horizon ult that causes a little bit of trouble. It's a nice honest scan, keeping Furia in sight of SSG, but the scan right back is something that Furia have in their advantage. They're maintaining their Bloodhound ult, don't want to use it now, want to keep it for later, keep it for the next zone, but can they afford to do so as Optic push up to the bridge, as Tripods fire down at them? Who can afford to save their resources now?
Tripod sliding forward. We know that this little wall is a source of cover, but from behind, teams are climbing. An Arcstar stuck just alongside them as they don't quite go down just yet, but are being pressured. Finally, from above, it's none other than Optic, but they're as low as it gets. Pressured from damage on their own rotation and are quickly eliminated as a result.
Now, bots pick up some kills there, but they're not out of the woods yet. Tripods still behind, are applying pressure, are coming over this wall to lay down the damage onto Impulse and Jalone. The Horizon ult pulls Jalone right onto the roof, though, and he gets taken down by the swing from Nick Merckx. Another squad falls as Furia pick up just the one member of SSG. They're trading back his Watson, who is unresable at this point in the game. No more Bangalore smokes, no more safety, and maybe soon no more Furia or SSG. We're into the top 6 teams, and even that little bit of poke from Panders comes at big risk.
Mind you, all of this fighting taking place towards the edges. It's the Guard in the central position who haven't found anything, any pressure. They are still more than alive here to potentially walk away with this victory. The last moments of cover for all of these teams.
If you don't have a crypto, you can't push this. There's simply no way to have access to the Guard through all of those fences. It would take a miracle to do so, and even now, Furia pushing out, try and grab a miracle of their own and simply cannot. SSG get that knock, and like that, they know they have Furia in a corner. They take him out. SSG picking up 2 kills for the price of 1, and now have managed to grab themselves a 5th place spot as Tripods push up to the Guard. All that the Guard has to do is hold on to the roof for right now, something they should easily be able to maintain control of.
Tripods below, energy on the first player, Guard above, CLG on the outside, and remnants from our fight from SSG on the outskirts here. Everyone collapsing on this building. SSG picked off by the Guard from above.
And NRG right underneath them as well with the Loba ult to top it all off. It's going to be Watson versus Watson here as CLG and Tripods have no way in, looking to try and take down. You have to imagine NRG, because to access the Guard, you'd have to go through that monster of a squad. CLG coming around the corner. Maggie Drill could be big here, lays down a good bit of damage and ends up eliminating that pylon. Loba ult on the outside will get them swapped up. Shields at the ready, but CLG have only this little corner to play and still have not dethroned NRG from beneath.
NRG beneath here, guard above. Both squads, though, about to lose out on their coverage. Tripods on this outside angle, right in the front of NRG, already finding knocks in combo with CLG as they quickly burn. NRG immediately turning to turn onto CLG towards their left.
CLG are getting melted right now. Nano able to find a shield swap for the moment, but Guard are on top, and Guard are raining down fire on the lobby. They've lost 2, though, as Rambo's down, and it's in the hands of Keon. 3 teams still left. The Chaos reigns supreme as Rambo not going to be able to clutch it up. Sweet may be able to do it, and he does, picking up the win for NRG from the low ground.
At the end of the day, with their second win here on World